Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's WiCyS webinar. My name is Morgan Garland. I'm the board liaison with WiCyS. And with me today, I have the Palo Alto Networks team who's going to be leading our webinar. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and share a few slides to give you all an overview of the WiCyS organization for those of you who are not familiar with us. WiCyS is a 501c3 nonprofit with a mission to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. We go by our acronym WiCyS, as in We Sisters, because that is exactly what we are. We are a global cyber sisterhood. We have over 11,000 members in we are in over 107 countries right now. We have over 300 student chapters, 68 professional affiliates, and a lot more. We offer a variety of different skills development training programs geared towards all career levels, early, mid, and senior. We have our monthly newsletter that goes out, our annual conference, which is coming up in no time. That is March 11th to 13th in the Washington, D.C. area. We have our job board available to our members to look and search for jobs from our strategic partners. It's available 24/7. And then we have our mission support team for our Tier 1 partners, our senior ally network, and our student chapters. You can view all of our programs on the WiCyS website. That is wecys.org. Go to the program tab and you can view all of our open programs at the moment. Right now, we do have our WiCyS VDP program accepting applications, our WiCyS Decoding Dialogue. We do a monthly book club, and our Executive Leaders Network. We owe all of our initiatives to our wonderful strategic partners, our Tier 1 partners being Akamai, Amazon, Bloomberg, Cisco, Ford, Google, Lockheed Martin, Palo Alto Networks, SentinelOne. And please ask questions during today's session. There is a little chat box on your screen that you can drop your questions in throughout the webinar. We do have time reserved at the end to answer those, so we will get to them. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the WiCyS newsletter. You can stay up to date on all of our events and programming initiatives coming up, and you can do that at our website at wecys.org. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Palo Alto team to go ahead and kick off today's webinar.
Thank you so much, Morgan. All right, well, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. We are thrilled to be here. Today, we're going to talk to you about the real I in AI, finding your voice in the machine. So as Morgan mentioned, we are a strategic partner to WiCyS. A little about Palo Alto Networks. We're focused on protecting the digital way of life. That means operating at a global scale, securing enterprises, governments, critical infrastructure. We have over 70,000 customers globally across 150 countries. And yes, we are hiring across all of these regions, so definitely check out our careers page. In addition, we're serving thousands of customers globally. We deliver security across multiple platforms. You might have heard the term platformization. That's us. From network security to cloud AI-driven operations. We're also deeply invested in AI-powered innovation, and that's why we are here today. So a little bit more about us. In addition to, we work very hard every day, but Palo Alto Networks believes in creating community. How do we do that? That's really one of our ways that we do that is through our employee network groups. I'm a proud of Juntos specifically. I'm a part of the leadership team for Juntos. This week, we just hosted a session on preventing burnout. But we've got many different communities, whether you identify or you're an ally. We've got innovation, Salam, BetNet, women, the women's community. So as people join, again, this is a great way for you to create community and to be able to network. We like to work hard, but we also like to enjoy each other's company as well. So again, welcome today. My name is Angela Garospi. I'm a principal recruiter here at Palo Alto Networks. I have been recruiting, which feels about 20 years. It's just gone by. I love my role here at Palo Alto Networks. I've been here for 6 years, supporting our technical services organization. So I primarily hire for customer success, professional services. I am hiring. Please connect with me on LinkedIn.
I think Angela had cut out, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. Oh, Angela, you're back.
Oh, yeah, I lost my connection there. I apologize. Where did you lose me at?
Just talking about you at Palo Alto.
Okay. Well, I'll turn it over to you. I'll speak a little bit more.
Perfect.
Sorry about that. I know my
Yeah.
connection lost there, but I'll pass it over to Danielle. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I've been at Palo Alto for 4 years. Um, I have worked supporting sales, and then now I'm supporting our GCS organization. My roles specifically are in technical support that I'm supporting, and it's been amazing. I've always had a special interest in cybersecurity, which is why I ended up at Palo Alto Networks. Um, and I'm excited to go into a little bit more detail about how to use these AI tools to focus on EQ. And I'm going to hand it to my other colleague, Brooke.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Looking forward to speaking with all of you today. My name is Brooke Anderson. I've been at Palo Alto Networks for a little over 4 years. I'm in the cybersecurity industry for a little over 10 years, and in total, in recruiting, nearly 20 years, which sounds like a long time. But really excited, again, to be here today. I have absolutely loved my time at Palo Alto Networks. It is just an incredible company. Since I've been at Palo Alto Networks, I have recruited for our core engineering organization as well as Unit 42. More recently, joined the professional services organization. I've also, in my career, have a soft spot for interning university graduate programs as I built out at a prior company. And looking forward to answering your questions as well. And so for our agenda, I'll quickly walk through how we'll spend our time together. I'll start by grounding us in what emotional intelligence means and why it matters even more in AI-driven workplace. Then Danielle will move us into application, how to leverage EQ strategically in the interview process and within the workplace, and use AI as a tool to strengthen your positioning. And then Angela will close us out with some insights from a recruiter's perspective and follow-up conversations on this topic at the WiCyS conference coming up. What is EQ? When people hear emotional intelligence, sometimes it sounds like a soft skill. It's not necessarily. It's more so how you interpret situations, how you regulate yourself under pressure, how you read context and respond intentionally. It's really the difference between reacting and responding. And over time, that difference really builds trust, strengthens judgment, and expands influence. This isn't theoretical. In the job search is what I'll cover, and then also within the workplace, and how that EQ really shows up and how we're showing up in these areas. So, in the job search process, it's about how you handle maybe a curveball question, how you follow up after an interview, and how you receive feedback without becoming defensive. I personally have had an experience where, again, in the recruitment process, I understand that there are a lot of different variables that happen. There's obviously a lot of qualified candidates for a role, and I personally was interviewing for a role actually here at Palo Alto Networks, wasn't selected, and I remember having a conversation with my senior recruiting leader at the time, letting me know that they weren't going to move forward at that time. But the way that I took it was not necessarily personal about what I could have done better. It was more so, this is a business decision. It's not necessarily a decision that's based on just me solely and something I could have done better. So I really think that it's, how we're reacting to certain situations is really crucial, both in the job search process as well as, again, in the workplace, right? So, in the workplace, how do we show up when there's shifting priorities? For example, right now we're in the process of migrating to a new system, and there have just been a lot of different shifts and priorities and, adjustments to be made. But, when I think about it, how am I showing up, for my team? How am I showing up for, the recruiting leaders each day? It's really important to to set that time aside, again, to think about, how we're showing up in these different moments in our careers. So what are some skills that employers are prioritizing today? When you ask a hiring manager, what they value, you'll hear communication. And Danielle, you can go ahead and click. When you ask executives what they need, you'll hear adaptability. Emotional intelligence underpins all of these. It's the infrastructure beneath the visible skills. And as AI accelerates technical output, the human layer really becomes even more important. So in an AI-powered world, what sets you apart? It's as AI is accelerating a change, AI can help you write your resume. AI can help you polish an email and structure your answers for an interview. But the differentiator really is going to be that authenticity that you bring as a human. There's going to be a difference between using AI to clarify your thinking and using AI to replace your voice. So one strengthens connection and the other weakens over time. You can click. Thank you. And, in the research that I've been doing for, this presentation, really what was consistent across the board is that high performers are consistently demonstrating strong EQ. So how do we strengthen EQ intentionally? If emotional intelligence is developed, how do we actually strengthen it? Self-awareness doesn't improve just because we want it to. It improves when we create space to examine how we show up. So again, as I was thinking through after the interview process that I went through, it took me some time to really sit down and think about it and reflect, right? And since then, there are, times that I have to actually put my time aside for myself and really develop that and work on myself. That self-awareness is really important. So most of us just move really fast. We don't pause to ask, what did I signal in that conversation? Or how did I respond under pressure? What impressions did that leave? And so reflection, is a discipline. And interestingly, AI can actually help structure that reflection if we use it correctly. If you give it clear direction, it can amplify your voice, not impersonate it. And that's where we want to shift from the mindset to tools. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Danielle, who's going to walk us through how you can apply this strategically in the interview process.
Thanks, Brooke. So I think what's really important to remember is just that AI is more of an amplifier than a replacement. One of the things that I really liked, I read an article and it said, we're still in the honeymoon phase of AI, which is totally true. We're really excited about it. We're eager to use it for different things. I know we're trying new ways to use it at work to make our work lives easier, but also just to automate things. But in that, we really want to make sure that, it's not sounding too polished and we're not taking away the human part of it. So how do we kind of use AI to elevate human connection rather than replace it is really the question here. I'm going to share just an example here. This is a follow-up email that I would do for, say, if I interviewed for like a business analyst role. So you can see on the left, and there's a lot of words on here, so you don't have to read through the whole thing, but you can see on the left here that, this is the AI voice. It's a little bit more just structured. It does sound like it's lost its authenticity a little bit. And also it sounds a little bit forced. So I think that's, just using a regular prompt. Hey, I did a business analyst interview last week. Can you please write a follow-up email? Then I have an example on the right here of when I actually use a prompt to generate my specific voice. So in this example, you can see how, I'm going back and sharing a little bit about how, the overall interview resonated with me. I'm reflecting back on it. I'm also talking about ways that, I can show value. So for example, maybe writing something like, hey, I can help meet X goal on your team with X skill set. So just kind of relating it back to, the things that you talked about in the interview is really going to show the manager that you are actively listening and you're really excited about the opportunity. So this is the prompt that I use to kind of channel that specific voice. So I like to call this the style prompt. This is something that you can use in AI, ChatGPT, Gemini. You can use it as a prompt. Just having AI analyze your writing style. So you can, submit a few different emails, maybe some documentation you've done, just to see like what's the vocabulary I'm typically using, what's the perspective, what kind of punctuation do I use to really generate your specific unique voice. You can also use this as a Gemini gem, so that way you have it up and ready for whenever you want to, create something specific to your own voice. And then another way that I like to use EQ would be during the interview process. You can really just, utilize your personal EQ from start to finish. So for prepping for an interview, I recommend using several different prompts. I'm going to share some of them after our call today. But here are some of the ones that really resonated with me. For example, this one here is a grounding prompt. So this is something that you could use. Like, for example, if your interviewer is using the STAR method to do interviews, this is a really great way if you're like more of that nervous interviewer, which I know I definitely am, to just ask AI like, hey, can you share some grounding phrases that would help me to kind of acknowledge the question, think about it before responding. So I really like this one just for, overall interview prep, especially if you're more of that, nervous interviewer. Another one that I like is for the STAR method specifically. A lot of companies are going to be using STAR method now. So in prepping, how can I highlight, my emotional intelligence when answering questions in that STAR method? This is another great prompt, and you can use this for, focusing on emotional intelligence. You could also use it for like, hey, how can I highlight my technical skill set when answering questions? How can I highlight, my executive presence? So there's so many different ways that you could use this, but it's really just going to give you some more recommendations and things to think about. And then another thing that I like to do, and I just, learned a little bit more about this as well in prepping for this presentation, but practicing interviewing with AI is also something that you can do. So there's actually a Gemini Live feature when you're looking at the Gemini app from your phone, where you can actually practice a live interview. So that in this instance here, I gave it the prompt, I'm interviewing for a project manager position. Let's do a mock interview where you ask me behavioral and situational questions that focus on EQ. And this was a lot of fun to do. I highly recommend this if you are, doing some type of interview, or even if you're like doing a presentation. This could be a great way just to kind of like role play with the AI live. So I'm going to play that video here and just show you how I did it.
In project management, you don't always get to choose your team. Describe a situation where you had to work with a colleague whose personality or work style was very different from yours. How did you bridge that gap to ensure projects stayed on track?
I once worked on a project with a lead developer who was very blunt and preferred working in silos, while I value collaboration. The friction was slowing down our sprints, so I took it upon myself to find a middle ground that respected both of our styles. Instead of pushing for long meetings, I shifted to sending him structured written briefs ahead of time so he could process them alone. I then scheduled 10-minute coffee syncs just to finalize decisions. He appreciated the efficiency, and I got the collaboration that I needed as well.
That's a fantastic example of emotional intelligence and conflict resolution. You demonstrated proactive communication by finding a compromise that respected both styles, leading to a positive outcome. For the final question, tell me about a time you were under significant pressure at work. How did you manage your emotions and stay productive during that time?
Yeah, one time during a major product launch, our main server went down 30 minutes before the go live event. The team was starting to panic, and as the project lead, I knew my reaction would set the tone for everyone else. I walked to the center of the room, acknowledged the stress, and asked everyone to take a 60-second reset. I then broke the problem into 3 immediate tasks and assigned them based on everyone's strengths. By staying calm and focused on the situation rather than the disaster, we got the server back up in 15 minutes. We launched on time, and the team leader told me that they appreciated the steady hand during the chaos.
That is an excellent star structure, and it highlights key emotional intelligence skills. You demonstrated composure under pressure, situational awareness, and effective team leadership during a crisis. Overall, your answers provided strong evidence of your EQ for a project manager role.
So you can see there, it really did give me some great follow-up to think about. I didn't play the whole video because it's a lot longer, but I did test back and forth, hey, what are some ways that I could have like honed in better on EQ? And then, what are some suggestions that you have to, show more EQ? Also, what answers could have, reflected, just more emotion. One of the suggestions that it actually came up with for me was just, hey, like take a pause. If you want to show a little bit more, emotional intelligence when it's a difficult situation, take a pause and say, yeah, I understand that could be really disappointing. That's a really difficult situation. So I think, it's a great tool to use, and it really comes up with some amazing questions, especially around the STAR method. And you can give it even more direction. If you want to drop a job description in there, if you want to ask for more specifics, more feedback, it's going to help you with that. And it'll even provide a write-up at the end that you can just, reflect on. So I really enjoy doing that, and definitely highly recommend for anyone that wants to, do kind of like that mock interview scenario. So, so you get through the interview, right? And hopefully you prepped and, you did a great job. That's always our hope, right? And so this is a follow-up email that you can do. I call it the connection follow-up email. This is basically just another example of a way to connect back to things that you specifically talked about. Maybe there was a really great side conversation that you had with the hiring manager. You were talking about a specific challenge with their team. You're maybe even talking about a software that they're going to be launching and you've used it before. Relate back to that in your email to show that you're actively listening and you really value that connection. I think this can go a long way in just, setting yourself apart from other candidates as well. And then another email that I have as a suggestion here would be kind of like that growth mindset follow-up email. So this is a prompt that I created just to see, hey, like what are some ways that I could get feedback from either the interviewer, hiring manager, or recruiter, right? And I think that that's really important to show that you can take constructive feedback well in the workplace, just in general, and then also during the interview process. So, so unfortunately you don't get the job, that's okay. But you know what? There's a really great way that you can follow up with the interviewer, just letting them know like, hey, you really enjoyed the interview process. You're still really invested in being at this company, and you want to know some ways that you can, improve your skill set for the next time. And just keeping, yourself on the radar for future roles with the recruiter or hiring manager. So I think, in totality here, there's just some really great prompts that you can create to come up with exactly what you're looking for, to show that, you have great emotional intelligence, but also just set yourself apart in the interview process. And now I will hand it over to Angela.
All right. Well, Danielle, you are hired. That was great. That was so very powerful tips. And I just wanted to highlight one additional thing. Taking feedback from your recruiter from a prior interview is very powerful. Reflecting on that interview, because oftentimes we have roles that are repeatable skill sets. I hire customer success engineers, service delivery leaders all of the time. And when I go to close out my candidate and provide them that feedback, they're disappointed. Of course you are. We only have one rec and we have 4 to 5 great candidates. Well, you are still a great candidate. And oftentimes when I get that follow-up role in 3 months, 2 weeks, whatever time frame, I will call you up, and once you reflect on that feedback, when you go to interview for that role again, you're that much stronger for a candidate. And that's oftentimes how, we build relationships and we get you hired at Palo Alto Networks. Because let's be honest, the job market right now is very hot. So set yourself apart. Your voice is your differentiator. All right. Well, we really laid the foundation today on EQ and how to utilize that with AI. So we're going to take this one step further when we go, and I'm bringing my partner, Marty Mondragon, who is a hiring leader here at Palo Alto Networks. I have been supporting her and hiring for her for many years. We are going to be presenting in person, winning the job search recruiter plus hiring manager perspective on AI and success. That'll be March 12th at 4:30. So what are we going to talk about? Of course, we'll have an AI powered agenda, a day in the life with AI. We're going to talk about how you beat the bots and get your resume to the recruiter. We'll give you a job seeker's playbook. And of course, we want to hear your questions and answers. But in this session, we'll show you how to use AI to strengthen every stage of your job search, from optimizing your resume to stand out, to preparing for your interviews with confidence, and also navigating salary negotiations with better insights. All share key fundamentals that still matter most using AI, but we'll bring Martha in to share her perspective from a hiring leader on what truly makes candidates stand out. So you can combine smart AI strategies with that human touch to land your dream role. All right. Well, not I will be at WiCyS, but we will also have a mighty team. I believe there's about 20 of us that will be going to WiCyS on site in Washington, D.C. We will be at booth 207 and 209. Come see us. We've got a lot of hot jobs on, and we'll share a QR code here in a moment. We will be conducting on-site interviews as well. And please, if you have not already, go ahead and connect on the WOVA app. You can see all of the events there. We will be hosting a social event on Wednesday night. We'll have recruiters, hiring leaders, business partners there to talk to you about our open roles, talk to you about Palo Alto Networks in general, answer any questions that you have. And since we are a premier partner with WiCyS, we also have 3 sessions of speakers. So the first one, they will all be on Thursday. So again, mark us in the WOVA app so you don't miss this. But we'll have Jas Sood. She will be Thursday, March 12th at 10 a.m. as a keynote. We'll have Maria Joseph. Her title session will be AI Isn't Replacing You. It's promoting those who adapt. That'll be Thursday at 10:45. And then, of course, myself and Marthy, we will be hosting Winning the Job Search Recruiter plus Hiring Manager Perspective on AI and Success. So our session is a little bit later in the day at 4:30. So grab your coffee, come join us. We would love to see you there. We'll be in Maryland 1 through 3. All right, so here at Palo Alto Networks, we like to have a little fun. So last year, Brooke and I, we started this Instagram account, She Leads with AI. Please scan the QR code, chat with us. We post a lot of behind the scenes of what's happening, hot jobs with Palo Alto Networks, behind the scenes of us preparing for WiCyS. But most important, we have a page on there through GitHub that has a lot of our AI tips, as well as we highlight AI tips that we've created to really help with resume optimization, interview skills, and even some fun things like travel as well. So make sure you connect with us on the Instagram account, and so that way we can, have conversation and create some community there. All right, so I'm going to turn it back over to my partner, Brooke. In the corner there, we do have our careers page. Please, I would encourage you to apply. We will be, prioritizing folks at WiCyS at the conference, and, if we can invite you to interviews on site. But thank you very much.
All right. So we do have the first question that is near and dear to my heart. It is about feedback. A lot of big companies are not giving feedback. What would you recommend when we get rejection? Should we still ask for feedback, or what is the best approach to improve next time?
Yeah, I can take this one, Brooke. So I think, and I see kind of another question as well related to the same thing. And I think, it's true, there are some companies that won't provide exact feedback. But I think it's important to still reach out and still ask, like, what ways can I improve? Or, if I interview again, because that's a little bit, I think it's not like so directed, but at least they can give you some tips like, hey, like we typically, like for us, right? Like we use a lot of situational and behavioral questions for interviewing. And so I would recommend really prepping for that. And I would say like, hey, for next time, you could actually, maybe even utilize something like this, a mock interview. But also you could just, really think about like some scenarios, some things that have happened that relate to the job so that you have those things up and ready to talk about. Because I know it can be hard, when you're put on the spot, especially with those types of questions. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really still important to reach back out and say like, hey, what can I do to improve for next time? I would still love to interview with this company. I'm really interested. Because I think that's a good way, to still get that feedback without like not the directed, like, this is why, specifically we rejected you.
And if I can just add to that as well, let's just say, because I know there was another question in the chat that some companies don't give the feedback. If you're not getting feedback, but you still want to improve yourself, go back to the job description, take the skills, and just look how your answers were compared to the requirements for the role. You can also create, based off the requirements in the job description, interview questions, behavioral based questions, and then formulate your response in a star. So the job description is very powerful when you start the interview process, and with using AI, you can get some practice tips there as well.
Yeah, and I'd also like to say too that it's often that there isn't anything that the candidate could have done differently. They showed up as their authentic self. It really came down to, again, that moment in time and what the hiring manager was looking for. Maybe there was a candidate who had, a little bit more experience in cybersecurity or, within the main requirement, the technology that they were looking for. So just know that sometimes when you might not get necessarily like the feedback that you're looking for, that the recruiter, it's possible that, again, if they say, you're a finalist candidate, we appreciate you, interviewing with us. There isn't anything else that you could have done differently. Would love to stay in touch. We truly mean that. And there are often times where I'm having those conversations with candidates because they did really well. And I could definitely, would love to consider them for future roles. All right, let's see here. Okay, when it comes to interviews, I'm really bad at technical interviews, not because I am incompetent, but because I freeze up. And I am a hands-on person. Any tips on how to make myself look stronger without seeming unknowledgeable? Great question.
I can take that one. So I want to share a little story. I have a candidate who interviewed this week, and she is earlier in her career. She was a fighter pilot in the military, and we had her speak to a VP. And it was interesting because when I went to set up the interview with the VP had told me, Angela, I want you to tell her that I am a human too, that I'm not scary. And it just made me come back to thinking, even if it's a VP, senior director, manager, we're dealing with people where everyone's human, right? We all make mistakes. I think if you show up as your authentic self and just showcase, your technical skills by being prepared, taking a breath, I think that's okay. The other thing too is, as you go through technical interviews, sometimes you'll do an escape room, you'll do a technical assessment. That'll also really showcase your skills that you may not have shown in a face-to-face interview. So, I would just say two takeaways. Number one, we're human. Everyone's human. We've all got our personal stories, and we want to hear yours. The person that's sitting behind you, wants to hear. I know it looks like you're in college. We want to hear, what sort of projects you've done, how you incorporate that with technology. So we're humans, and lean on those technical assessments as well. That's where you really can showcase your skills.
Yeah, definitely. And off of that too, Angela, one thing I was thinking about is I've never had a hiring manager tell me, I want a candidate who answers every question and the technical is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think I've ever hired anyone who's answered all the questions perfectly. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, and well, I'm going to tag team on that as well. hiring leaders, they will, if you don't have to be perfect, but what they really look for is, do you have the foundational skills and are you coachable? Because somebody who's very stagnant and not coachable, it's very hard for them to work in a, a collaborative team. But if you come in and your heads down, you want to learn, they will take you over somebody who is very rigid and kind of their and set in their way. So also keep that in your back pocket.
Yeah. Yes, I've had a number of roles where we've actually ended up hiring someone who the more junior candidate outbeat the more seasoned engineers because of that reason. It was all male engineers in the team, all male interviewers, and they just raved about this young lady and the her coachability and how much that her positive impact in their conversations, and they just raved about her. And I'll never forget, like, it was wonderful to see. And I've been in touch with her just recently, and she's been really happy on the team. But show up as your authentic self, be who you are. And if you don't know an answer, let the interviewer know. Sometimes they might be asking more seasoned questions to then understand how that will direct their interview process. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're asking you because you have to know at that level. It will help them to direct the experience level, throughout the rest of the interview.
Absolutely.
Okay. Hopefully that was helpful. I know that there's a lot of tools out there too for technical interviews. Let's see here. We have a question from Stephanie. What if I didn't even land an interview? Can we ask for feedback on an application rejected?
I would say that's a little bit harder for an application that's rejected. We get a lot of resumes, and we would love to sit through them and give feedback. I think if you apply, I think it really goes back to, are you truly a fit for the role? But if you have a relationship with the recruiter, reach out to the recruiter, send an email. But to be honest with you, it's a little bit harder because we get hundreds of resumes. But now that you know us from WiCyS, you could always send Danielle, Brooke, and I a message to say, hey, I see this opportunity at Palo. Can you help me out? And we would love to do that. But in general, it's a little tough.
Yeah, and just know that when you apply, it could be that depending on what stage that we're in that process. Again, when you apply, when you interview, if you're not selected for that one role, it doesn't mean that you're not a fit for the company. Okay. Let's see.
Did we answer one stuck out to me about for PhD graduates, what would be the best approach on using AI to identify the best job position to apply for? You're definitely onto something there. When I saw that, I was like, ooh, that's actually a good thing to do. So I think, like, when you create your resume, dropping that into AI and asking, what jobs you should be applying for, I think that would be a great way. And you could also add some things, personal about yourself. Like, you're like, hey, I'm a visual learner. I like to do this. I'm really good at, creating documentation. Maybe I'm really good at, teaching others, mentoring, anything like that. Any, extra details I think would be great to provide to AI and just see what they recommend. That's a really great idea.
Yeah, I know that we have I have some students here in the audience too. And one thing I also suggest is that you don't have to have just a one-page resume. When I think about sometimes with PhDs or, graduate level students, I see all of their experience squeezed into one page, and you don't necessarily have to do that. It doesn't negatively affect your application by any means. Do you want to say that? Let's see. Right, Valentina, SMU, I'm also in Texas, if that's the same college. As someone new to cybersecurity with an IT background, I'm struggling to get my resume through ATS systems. How would you recommend candidates use AI to improve clarity and formatting while staying within your expectations for responsible AI use?
I would say come to our session in DC because we will cover this in person, as well as on the GitHub through our Instagram account. We have some tips on this. But I would say, I think Brooke mentioned it's okay to have multiple resumes. The only thing I would say, to be responsible with AI, you want to make sure that what you're putting on your resume is what you're actually doing, because the hiring leaders, recruiters, we are going to validate that. But if you've done it in projects, put that on your resume so that way you can highlight. I will say, and we'll talk a lot about this in DC, we're using AI to do kind of a match score, the job description to a resume. So you do want to highlight those keywords, those buzzwords, technology, systems that you've used, any sort of products. So that way your resume goes higher into the queue and you can really, not get discounted in the ATS. The good news is that you're not auto rejected from an ATS. I know that was a myth that, that ATSs are auto rejecting. We're not. It's just if you use those buzzwords, it'll help push your resume to the top.
Oh, that's a great question.
I think there's one in here for you, Brooke. Stephanie said LLMs can be overly positive. What are some prompts to make it more critical so I can actually identify gaps? Because Brooke is really good at challenging AI. A little bit about that would be great.
Well, when I notice that it's being positive, I just tell it straight up, like, why are you being so like complimentary? And it's something that I notice more so like at personal things like around the house. Great job, Brooke. Obviously, we want it to be positive in a way, but yeah, just up to it like you would another human and see what it comes up with. And maybe even like some prompts of help me practice for this interview based on hiring manager that has a stern presence or stern demeanor, or someone who might not necessarily have the same personality type as I do. So I think there's just different ways, but I would just talk to it like I would a friend. You being so positive.
Brooke, I think it's your personal goal to break LLM in Google because you often do challenge it. There's a question here from Noelle from University of Victoria. I noticed your LinkedIn profiles have first name and surname initials. Is there a strategy behind that instead of using your full surname? So that is a part of our security settings, just to kind of protect our identity. Once you connect with us, you'll be able to see our full name. So.
Yeah, I actually recently had to update my LinkedIn profile. I started getting messages on LinkedIn, fortunately from some secure conscious people out there who messaged me and said, hey, I received this email. It says that it's from you at Palo Alto Networks, but I noticed the email address is at a Gmail and just something doesn't look right. And so actually it was some different, I guess, hackers out there who pulled information from my LinkedIn profile. They created an email address. I think it was maybe Brooke Anderson, Alta Networks, gmail.com. And it's obviously it took the person's LinkedIn profile and it wrote them this very, delightful email about how well that they would be qualified for a role at Palo Alto Networks. I'm pretty sure that most of the ones that I read through are in industries that we don't have roles in. And so again, I decided to make my public facing LinkedIn just a little bit more private so you couldn't see my profile picture. Oh, because they also use my profile picture too. And when they created the Gmail account, they used my LinkedIn picture. So that was the reason why.
High security at Palo Alto Networks.
Okay, let's see here. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for this session. It's been very helpful. Appreciate that feedback. I applied for the manager NAM Unit 42 MDR role in November. Can you help me understand what was the determining factor for the denial? Thanks much.
I took your name down, so I will follow up with you on that.
Thank you.
I wrote it. Yeah, I wrote your name down. So I won't say your name out loud, but I'll circle back on that.
Thank you.
I like this one. What are the step-by-step things to do to have a positive application and interview? There is a fear like going to a war zone and candidate cannot relax. What is your advice? I think Danielle put a great prompt in there, and we'll share out this deck so you can utilize that. But, don't think of it as a war zone. I know sometimes it could feel overwhelming because they're getting your resume in the ATS, taking it to an interview. I would just say, when you get on your recruiter screen, display your skills, but even before that, network, see who you know on LinkedIn who can give you a warm connection. Because I will be honest with you, the job market is, it is, we're seeing a lot more applications right now, but it's ebb and flows. It goes down, and so I'm always telling candidates of like, hey, it is we're looking for a role is kind of like a full-time job, but it is what you put into it. And so just remember, we are people. Our hiring leaders are people. The VP said he's not scary, so don't think of it as a war zone. I'm a believer of like the glass is half full. Like just go in with a positive attitude. You can only do your best. Learn from every interview. I know when I lost my job previously, I didn't interview in many years, and so those first interviews were a little rough for me, but I kept practicing while I was driving those star responses. So in the shower, wherever you do your best thinking, think about behavioral based questions, use AI and those Gemini tools to be able to do those mock interviews, and that's really how you can showcase your skills.
Awesome. And if you guys check the chat, again, if you asked a question, I did try to reply. So just check there. I might have some replies for you.
Will we be at RSAC? I'm not sure if there's any recruiters going RSA, but I know that Palo Alto Networks will be, right?
Correct. Yeah. But I don't think we have a booth or anything like that at that conference.
And Stephanie, I see your message. Actually, if you want to scan my QR code and reach out to me directly, I can definitely help with that. I know your question was a little bit more specific. So to help there.
Here's one. What are the step-by-step things to do to have a positive application and interview? There's this fear like going into a war zone and candidate cannot relax. What is your advice? That hurts my heart to hear that. I would never want anyone to feel anything near, yeah.
Yeah, I think it can definitely be nerve-wracking for sure. Any interview. I know if I interviewed right now, I would be nervous, like I'm telling you, even though I do all this prep and I know about all the methodologies and everything that we're using to create questions and answer questions. I would still feel that nervous feeling. I think it's important to remember, like what Angela said, like everyone is human. If any of those people that are interviewing you were in an interview, they would also be nervous. But I think it's really great to try and use these prompts. And also like try that mock interview and let AI know before you even start it, like, hey, I'm a nervous interviewer. Like, let's do a mock interview, see how I answer these questions, give me some advice on how I can come off like less nervous and more confident. And I think that would work really well.
And another thing too, I always tell my hiring leaders, remember, candidates have choice. We're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing us. So, when you think about that, you take a little bit about your power, because what if you go and interview with a hiring manager and you could just tell he is or him or her, it's just not a good match. So, you can say no to that interview as well. So, or, that role, because you have to make sure that you're going to go and work at this role 40 hours a week. So you want to make sure that this is the right fit for you. So when you keep that in your back pocket, it kind of diffuses a little bit of that anxiety, but really utilizing those mock interviews with AI. And like Danielle mentioned, just saying, hey, I am nervous, and we're all nervous. So, just take a breath.
Yeah, and talk to the recruiter. If the company has a recruiter, that's where there is to help you navigate through this process. Ask for ways that you can prepare for the interview. If there's any specific focus areas that the interviewer will be asking about, obviously we try to provide that to the candidates. But if there's something that you need throughout the process, that's what we're here for, is to really help you navigate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it never hurts asking those questions before the interview. Some companies will have something ready to send out to you, but others, they may just honestly forget because there's so much going on all the time. There's so many candidates in process. If you reach out asking for ways to prep, I think that just shows the recruiter that you're, even more interested and you're willing to, really prep for this interview. So I think it's great to just reach out and ask if you're not being provided that proactively.
And not only that, at the end of the interview, oftentimes the hiring manager or recruiter will give you space and time to ask questions. By all means, do your research on the company, know what company you're interviewing with, and have some questions. It could be about, what does 30, 60, 90 days look like? It could be a personal question. Why do you like working for Palo Alto Networks? You can really hear from that person, is this the right type of opportunity for you? But I'll tell you, anytime I ask this question to a candidate at the end of my screen and they don't have any questions, I'm like, how interested are they in this role? So that's another way to show your curiosity and how much you're invested in the position.
Absolutely.
I was looking for a question that I was about to answer over the
I see
chat.
some questions on here too about resumes, and Angela will actually go into more detail on that during the WiCyS conference about how to, kind of use AI to help, with your resume.
And we've got some prompts up on the Instagram as well, that will take you to the GitHub, and it's got in-depth prompts there that you can utilize to prep your resume based on the job description, and then also utilizing AI to get those interview questions that you can do mock interviews with.
This is a great question. How should I prepare for potential on-site interviews at the conference? Would it be technical? I get really nervous and intimidated at career fairs and conferences, even though I'm normally an extroverted and outgoing person.
Yeah, so at the conference, we'll specifically be likely doing more introduction. I believe the time slots are 20 minutes, so we won't have much time to go into, a full technical interview, but our goal really will be to review your resume, get to know you a bit, find out what questions you have, and then seeing about, if there is potential match for the role. And then also, do we have other opportunities for you? So one thing I would say is once you check out our Palo Alto Networks career site, come to us with, say, a couple of different roles that you may be interested in, because we have different recruiters on site that will be specialized in those specific areas. So that'll help us just have a more well-rounded conversation. And we can start those conversations as early as the first day our booth is open to, at our social event as well. So we really welcome those conversations, because our goal is to walk away with some WiCyS attendee hires and celebrate with you on site.
Yeah, and also ask before, if you are able to get an on-site interview, ask the recruiter too what to expect.
I like this question here. Many candidates see themselves not doing well at the interview, but they get the job. And some see that they tried well in the interview but did not get the job. Then we talk about luck. Is this true? I would say, I always tell candidates about timing. You can have an amazing resume, go in there and, do really well in the interview, but there's so many different variables when we go to hire. And I'll give you an example. I hire for service delivery leaders all the time. And so I get a lot of great candidates for this role. And it may just be that, the specific customer that this person is going to support is in a certain region, or, a candidate worked with this customer before. There's so many different variables in the role. That's why I say, build that relationship with the recruiter, ask for the feedback, because again, we get these are repeatable skill sets. So I can tell you how nice it is when I have, a great pipeline of great candidates who have the right skills. When I have this role again, I literally just call up a candidate and say, hey, I have this new role. If it's within a certain time frame, sometimes we can go to offer. Sometimes it's just getting you on a call with someone from the sales team, whatever it may be, but it just creates a little bit more ease in the interview process. So I would say it is a little luck, but it also is timing, and also, what the requirements are for the position. Because sometimes when you have 5 great candidates, it's really going to come down to those really small factors, determining factors at the end of the process.
I see another about LinkedIn. I see, thanks for the session. Please do employers/recruiters match pay LinkedIn profile to the submitted application. Sometimes you are able to actually submit your LinkedIn with your application. I think that's great, just because there's so many things that you can show on LinkedIn that you wouldn't necessarily have on your resume. So I would honestly recommend it. We do use LinkedIn in tandem with, our actual applicant tracking system that we use to go through applicants. So, I think you can always see the person's LinkedIn if you look them up. But I think it's great to keep your LinkedIn up to date, because there's so many things you could provide on there, like groups that you're a part of, projects that you've worked on, just more things that, give us all the more reason to, connect with you and talk about how you would be a good fit for the role. So, I hope that helps.
I'm so excited. My daughter is starting her LinkedIn page this week. She had an assignment in class, and so I was like, oh my gosh, you're starting your professional career. She's a senior in high school, so off to college. But I was like, kudos to her English teacher for, getting these guys started early. So I just had to throw that out there. LinkedIn is very powerful.
Yes.
And there was a question, can you post the previous QR code for the IG account? And so if you go to Instagram, it's she, and I just put this in the chat as well. Thank you.
There you go.
And thank you everyone who started following. It looks like we've got an increase in numbers, and we'll post some content, some highlights from this session on the Instagram today as well.
Let's see. A lot of tech job postings are on-site and not remote. Is remote work something that can be brought up in interview process or negotiated post-offer?
I would talk about that early.
The first person that you talk to.
Exactly.
First person you talk to. That's not something that, if the role is posted on-site, that is a non-negotiable. Again, if the recruiter reaches out to you and you selected that you are open to relocating, and obviously you're not where the office is in your first conversation, if that's going to be a deal breaker where you're not able to relocate and the recruiter confirms that it's not it's not a remote role, then you just have to move forward. That's not something that
I would be really upfront about what you need and what you want in your next role, because we want that for you just as much as you want that. So we want to make sure that we're putting you into the right position where you're happy and going to be there long term.
And most companies now, they have return to office. So a lot of our roles for Palo Alto Networks are specific to specific locations, but we will post on our roles if they are remote eligible. But I like my partners mentioned, talk about that early, because sometimes it's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, and also to clarify, when I said move forward, I didn't mean you necessarily have to go to a different company. Obviously, if the company does have remote roles, there is a possibility, that another role could come up in the future that would be remote that you'd be interested in. So,
All right. Well, I know that
we
we're
have
at
just 1 minute. Do you have time for one more?
I tried to answer some more in the chat, and sorry if I'm being kind of brief. I'm just trying to do as many as I can.
Yes. Okay.
all right. Well, I know we're at the end of our time. Or did you want to answer
these
one more?
questions and answer them? Maybe I'm not sure how that works, but there's some really good questions in here. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us today. We were very thankful that you spent an hour with us. If you will be in DC in a couple of weeks, we would love to see you on site. Like I said, I will be there with several of my Palo Alto Networks recruiting partners. And so thank you again for your time and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.